car news. Now, news has been very slow lately, which is why I've been doing it once a week compared to like the normal, like 2 times a week, which I've been doing. So there's a little bit of news today. There's not a lot. Contrary to popular belief, I did not die. My schedule just got extremely busy. 530. This is great. I mean, we're getting so close. Things are going so well, and I'm so excited for what the future beholds. So, first thing, GM recalls more than, almost 100 and almost 50,000 SUVs and pickups after low brake fuel warning light issues. Just stupid stuff. GM, we know GM's break in, it's either two ways, all the recalls. It's either really small, trivial stuff like this, right? Low brake fuel warning light, whatever. Or it's like the engine transmission, like that big ignition issue for it. It's just with American companies, it's either one way or the other, right? So the next one, say goodbye to this iconic Chevrolet model, first produced in 1964. I'm sure I don't have to tell you why this is sad. We're seeing so many of these newer cars that just suck. The Nissan Kicks, right? The Versa, all these cars that were just invented within the last 10 years and are now kind of part of daily lives, like the Tesla Model 3, right? So good old names like the Malibu, which has been made since 1964, I believe longer than that too. And yeah, and it's gone now, right? The Chevy Malibu is officially gone. GM, they've wiped their hands of it. They said, you want to know what? They stopped selling the Cruze a while ago. They've still sold the Malibu, which you would have thought that the Cruze would have sold better than the Malibu, but because it's smaller and less expensive, but hey. And, today's the day that the Malibu dies. Unfortunately, like I said, these newer cars, man, they have no history, and the companies behind them have no history. Like Tesla, they've only been around for 20 or so years, compared to, like, Toyota, who's been around, like, 1940s, 1930s, 1920s. It's just, these newer car companies, like the Corolla, Civic, Accord, Camry, those cars have been around for a decent amount of time, and they carry a reputation. Instead, these, like the Malibu is like what you think of when you think of an all-American sedan, because Ford's gone through Fusion, Falcon, Fairlane, whatever. Chevy's really stuck with the Malibu name, so it's finally dead now, which is sad. This is like the last true American, sedan that you can buy. Chrysler, the 300's gone. It's been gone for 2 years. It's still on their website for weird. The best of the three, which I would think is the Ford Fusion, that's also gone, and now the Malibu's gone, which is of course sad. GM is laying off about 1,700 workers at the Kansas plant. The GM building is just so ominous with its like blue like screen thing. It just looks so weird. So there's always these photos when it comes to dramatic things. We know GM's not doing well. Mary Barra has her heels dug into the sand about EVs. They're not moving. This is actually the hill they're going to die on. So they're laying off workers, having gigantic recalls, and it's all just because they're getting lazy. They're building things as cheap as they can, and yet still they're so gracious enough to contribute to that, future zero alternative. Not that they're making money from it or anything. Obviously not, because, they're firing workers. The next thing is, we never say we told you so. This entire Evie debate, I've talked about it so many times on this channel, and there's always someone who's like, EVs are selling great. There's this one guy that said that, like, if Toyota was selling, if I was talking about Chrysler and how, Carlos Trevevez is going to kill the 3 companies, and about how they're trying to move over to EVs, and it's going to be the one end up killing them, and like, if Detroit started selling EVs 20 years ago, they'd be selling them faster than Tesla. No, EVs had sucked, right? They're good for, like the Nissan Leaf. They're good for just around the town, trips like that. They're not good for everyday vehicles. This is Toyota, of course, gloating in all the other car makers' face, who are just determined to push this, I think it's actually an agenda at this point. They're not, they're making tons of money from it, unless you're GM and you build your cars poorly, they're making tons of money from it, high profit margins and crossovers, all that crap. This is like, we have waves which are difficult for the car makers, right? Toyota, it's very, very difficult to make a hybrid. Remember in the 1990s when an EV wasn't a thing, much less an EV with like, this transition thing that allows it to work, separate from the motor, but also with the motor, but also have air conditioning that's not run by the motor, but run by the battery and not drain and not catch on fire by draining too quickly and not using rear, just so difficult. Now, like we've seen this with the Honda and GM crossover. Instead of doing what Toyota and Honda had to do, which is actually compete, they're just saying, "Oh, mate, you mind if I borrow your EV? Oh, yeah, sure, mate, just slap your badge on it." And that's what they're doing. They're just rebadging extremely high profit margins. Remember, they're building crossovers. If you don't know why crossovers are so cheap and easy to build, 2020 render, yeah. If you don't know why crossovers are so easy to build, it's like a Nissan Versa with big stubby wheels on it. That's it, right? Compared to a true SUV like a 4Runner takes a lot, 4-wheel drive, all that crap. Crossovers, they're just kind of like economy cars raised off the ground slightly with bigger wheels, which means high profit margins, And a lot of people think that, like, EVs cost a lot to make, which we don't really know because they don't put out that many numbers on EVs, but I'm guessing it's actually it's more expensive, but remember, they charge a whole lot more for it, right? So think of it like this, right? I can buy a brand new Chevy Blazer for like $28,000. The Blazer EV starts at $48,000, I believe. That's $20,000 more. So I don't care if it costs $1,000 more to make the EV. That $20,000 difference just isn't worth it. So yes, they are in fact bringing in the money with EVs. Don't weep for these companies who say that, like, oh, EVs are so they're not. Also, Chrysler Concorde. This is probably not true, so take this with a grain of salt. But some people have been saying that it's going to have a revival and Chrysler's going to bring it back as some sort of weird EV. I really don't know what if you don't know, the Chrysler Concorde had existed before this point as an actually decent, somewhat decent catfish-looking car. Carlos Treveves and all the other crap things, they're just, they're dead set on EVs. So, of course, every few weeks or so we see these Chrysler render rumors. That's what I like to call them. Like, we know that the airflow's right, but this, Chrysler, they're just so dead set on EVs, and, other companies, it's acceptable, right? If, like, GM is fully gone in on EVs, and they're actually making them. Chrysler just shows us a picture of an EV, say, hey, we're going to make that, and then nothing. Anyway, in other news, exactly what you'd expect, Hyundai and Kia are recalling yet more vehicles. This is April 1st, which was actually a while ago. They're recalling more vehicles, and more vehicles are being added to this list. I believe I've already covered this last car news, but still. They're recalling millions of vehicles over dangerous defect, most remain on the road. Chrysler and Hyundai and Kia vehicles. First, they had the fire recalls because the wiring. Like, back in 2010, they used really cheap, shoddy wiring. We're like, same with Fiat, Chrysler, just all the same. They use the same crap. It degrades, wires rub, things happen, fires happen. So they just said park it outside. Now they're recalling it over a dangerous defect, which is, and then we have the Kia boys and the theft deterrent system. Now we're having fuel pumps and that stuff. Just so ridiculous. Another thing. Times are changing for the Subaru Forester Outback and Crosstrek. So Subaru, for a minute there, for a brief moment, was going very, very well, right? They were steamboating ahead. They were like beating every other manufacturer. People wanted their cars and they could barely get them to the dealerships fast enough. But now times are changing. The market's swaying a little bit. People are going more out of EVs and more into normal cars, which you'd think would be good for Subaru. But really, no, their sales have kind of hit a brick wall and inventory is building up, which is not ever what you want to see for a car company. And also, Consumer Reports has decided that they're going to dump all the safest vehicles off the list. Consumer Reports, I really don't like Consumer Reports. Not because I think that they're bad, just because I think that I don't trust them, right? They always say, like, last year I believe they said the Kia Seltos was the best SUV you can buy, and it's Consumer Reports. I don't know about that. Like, as a YouTuber, I don't do videos on Tesla. I don't do videos on Lucid. I do videos on, like, everyday common cars because that's what my viewer is most likely to purchase, right? Meanwhile, Consumer Reports just picks the most expensive one and just says, hey, that has the most features, you should buy this. So it's very objective, but not in a way that considers all grounds. I just don't like Consumer Reports. And dropping Subaru, they probably get paid by Mazda so that they can make that flashy ad if you've seen that ad. Just crap. I mean, come on, this is what the auto industry is boiled down to nowadays. And also, the 2025 Toyota Sienna is being revamped. We've seen, like I said, there are these kind of mini, like, wars that happen. We've seen it in, like, the 2000s. You had the Nissan Versa against the Toyota Corolla Matrix and against the Honda Fit. The Corolla Matrix ended up winning. The Honda Fit ended up being second best, and the Versa just kind of ended up just, chugging along. They were both discontinued. Since then, all of them have been. And so this is kind of the mini war that we're seeing now. It's less about who can sell the most vehicles and more about who can make the best vehicle, which happens sometimes, but it's not sales-oriented. So right now, it's classic Toyota against Honda against Kia with their MPV. They just don't want to call it a minivan. And so Toyota's revamped the Sienna. Again, minivans aren't selling. We've seen that. I'm glad that it's still around. This isn't about, like, they're, by refreshing it, they're going to get serious sales. It's just so that they can kick Kia's ass because Kia's been way too whiny about their cars within the past couple things. And another thing that I'm upset about, this is a classic good Toyota steering wheel. The new one is rumored to have this ugly, fugly Toyota. It's just so ugly. The Prius steering wheel is very thin and weedy. And thin and weedy steering wheels, I think, can be great. I really love thin and weedy steering wheels. These crappy ones from, like, the Prius and the BC4X, they suck. The buttons aren't where you want them to be. They're uncomfortable to hold, and you can't put your hand at the bottom there like I can with my, 2010 and 2009. I definitely like this one better. You know, I mean, still can't put your hand there, but it looks nice. These new ones are just way too chunky, ugly, and out of place to be in there. I also think the Sienna looks ugly. This is just a render, right? But, you know, Toyota, I'm assuming they're 100% going to put this fugly steering wheel on the Sienna, which I don't want them to do, you know? So, with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys very soon. Let me know what I should do for my 500 subscriber special. I have still been planning it. I have not forgotten about it, right? So just give me ideas in the comments.